You know that feeling, right? When everything you thought was solid suddenly feels a bit unsteady.
Mm-mm.
Like you think you've got a handle on something. Maybe it's finding your way around a new city or learning a skill or, well, like today's topic, understanding English.
Yeah.
You've put in the work, studied, practiced, maybe even traveled. And then suddenly, bam! Someone hits you with slang you've never heard.
Or an accent throws you completely off.
Exactly. Or they use a word you thought you knew, but nope, means something totally different here. And just like that, you feel like you're fumbling around again.
That moment is, it's so relatable, isn't it? It really gets at the fact that language isn't static. It's
Yeah.
alive, it changes, and it's so deeply connected to culture and place.
Way more than just vocab lists and grammar rules.
Definitely.
And that's really what we're getting into today. That whole um, complex, sometimes really bumpy, but ultimately pretty amazing journey of navigating language, culture, identity, all of it when you
Yeah.
move to a new English-speaking country.
It's this mix of excitement, for sure, but also those unexpected hurdles and just, well, a ton of learning, sometimes in ways you really didn't see coming.
Right. And to help us explore this, we've been looking at some really interesting material. There's this study that spent a good amount of time with teenage students from China studying over in the UK.
Yeah, their firsthand stories give such a rich view of what adapting is actually like on the ground.
And we're kind of weaving that together with a broader look at how English itself just isn't one single thing.
Yeah.
You know, how it shifts depending on where you land, UK, US, Australia.
We've seen stuff from linguistic comparisons to like actual online chats people are having about this exact thing.
It paints this really vivid picture of what adaptation truly means. It's not just about fitting in, it's much deeper.
So, where should we start this journey? Maybe right at the beginning. Like, why do people even take that huge leap,
Good question. What makes someone pack up and move across the world?
especially for school at that age?
Well, for the students in the study we looked at, it was pretty layered. It wasn't just, oh, I want a foreign education. A massive driver was escaping the intense academic pressure back in China.
Ah, the Gaokao. You hear about those exams?
Exactly. The national college entrance exams.
Mm.
The competition is just immense. The study really highlighted how that pressure starts years before, sometimes squeezing out subjects like art or music just to focus purely on the test subjects.
Wow, that sounds incredibly stressful. So they were looking for something different, an alternative path.
Yeah, I think so. The study mentioned this desire for a learning style that felt maybe less rigid, more focused on practical skills, perhaps, and crucially, one that let them actually choose subjects they were interested in.
Right, like economics or drama, things that might not have fit into that narrow Gaokao track back home. Wider options.
And it wasn't always just the student's dream, was it? The family plays a big role, too.
Oh, definitely. The sources mention significant parental influence. You know, parents believing that studying abroad, maybe starting younger, offers a better path.
Like a perceived easier route to prestigious universities. Even if getting into somewhere like Oxbridge is still incredibly tough.
Yeah, it's like a different kind of competition, maybe one that felt slightly more manageable or accessible than fighting through the Gaokao system for those very top Chinese universities. A different door.
That perception is powerful, adds another layer to why they go.
Okay, so they make the decision, they take the plunge. What's it like when they first arrive? That initial phase.
Well, the study actually calls it a honeymoon high, which, yeah, that tracks.
Makes sense, that initial excitement.
Totally. And the students seem to have really positive first impressions, especially about the physical surroundings. They talked about the UK school's campus being beautiful, you know?
Like the classic Victorian buildings feeling like a movie set.
Yeah, exactly. And the green spaces, the forest environment, even practical things felt like an upgrade.
Like the accommodation.
Right. Sharing a room with just one other person instead of, like, 6 or more back home. Plus, having cleaning and laundry services. That felt like a definite step up.
Okay, so it starts pretty positively idyllic even.
Initially, yeah. But we know that phase doesn't usually last forever, right?
Yeah.
Then comes the dip. The culture shock sets in.
And it's often not the huge dramatic things, is it? It's the small everyday stuff that wears you down.
Oh, for sure. And food came up again and again for these students.
Yeah.
A classic example.
Missing home comforts.
Deeply missing hot meals, proper rice, noodles, things that are just fundamental to their diet and, well, comfort.
And suddenly being faced with hamburgers, sandwiches, chips, pizza, pretty much constantly.
Yeah, the study said that was a real struggle for them, and it lasted quite a while. It's amazing how much food grounds you,
Absolutely. Such a core part of feeling at home. And it wasn't just the food, right? What about school life itself? Any surprises there?
Yeah, apparently there are unexpected differences in just the daily routines. Like the study mentioned tutor meetings being really important in the UK system.
Something they weren't used to.
Right, one student actually missed theirs. At first chose sleep or homework instead
Mm.
and ended up getting detention.
Whoa. So different expectations about things like registration or how you're supposed to use your free periods for self-study.
Exactly. It shows how these seemingly small things point to bigger differences in the whole educational structure and culture. It's not just what you learn, it's how the whole day works.
Precisely. Which leads us right into the big one, the language itself. You land in an English-speaking country, but as anyone who's bounced between them knows, English is not just one thing.
No kidding. It's this huge, sprawling beast with all sorts of local flavors.
And this is where those other sources looking at different Englishes really shed light. Vocabulary alone can be such a minefield.
Some are just confusing, right? Like queue versus line or
Ugh.
petrol versus gasoline. Simple differences.
Yeah, but others, as you see in online discussions, can cause real embarrassment. The classic ones people mention.
Like rubber. Eraser in the UK, but maybe condom in the US.
Exactly. Or fanny, meaning totally different things in the UK and US, making fanny packs sound very awkward depending on where you are.
Oh, gosh. Or pants. Underpants in the UK. Trousers in the US. Imagine that mix-up.
Right. Or even things like full stop versus period, zebra crossing versus crosswalk. These aren't obscure terms. They're everyday words that just change.
It's wild. And then you layer on accents and slang. That's another huge hurdle.
Oh, yeah. People online talk all the time about thinking their English was fine until they hit a really strong regional accent, UK, Australian, wherever.
Totally. I've seen those comments too. Thought I was fluent until I heard a Glaswegian. Or
Oh.
just trying to keep up with common slang.
Like cringe or crash, meaning to sleep somewhere suddenly. Or even just understanding how a simple word like dude works in conversation.
It's not just the dictionary definition, is it? It's the use, the context, the pronunciation.
And for students like the ones in the study learning English as an additional language, ELS students, these challenges just stack up. They
Mhm.
often come in with a really solid grasp of grammar and vocabulary.
Right, from their previous schooling, maybe more traditional methods.
Yeah, grammar translation, audiolingual drills. They might kill it on written tests. They know the rules.
Not speaking.
But speaking, yeah. Spoken fluency, that natural back and forth, that's often where they struggle. And there's this very real fear, fear of making mistakes in front of everyone.
Which makes them hesitant to even try sometimes.
Exactly,
At the-
which slows down their progress in actually using the language conversationally.
And then on top of that, they have to learn complex school subjects through English. EMI, English Medium Instruction. That sounds like a double whammy.
It really is. Imagine trying to get your head around, I don't know, economics or physics concepts, which are hard enough anyway, but through a language you're still figuring out.
All the unfamiliar academic words, the complex sentences.
And trying to follow teachers with different accents, catching the key points. Even if you know the individual words, putting it all together to follow a lecture or a complex explanation, super demanding.
Did the study mention specific subjects they found tough?
Yeah, it did. Things like economics, further maths, physics, chemistry often came up subjects needing really precise language and abstract thinking.
Okay, so the adaptation is way more than just language. It's plugging into a whole different way of being a student. How did they handle the broader school system differences?
Well, academically, there were the surface things like smaller classes in the UK compared to maybe 50 or 60 kids in China.
That's a big difference.
Huge.
Yeah.
And changing classrooms for every subject, that was apparently new for them too, just the logistics. But the really big shift was probably the classroom culture.
How so?
Well, the Chinese system they came from is often very teacher-led, right? Strict rules, listening quietly, interrupting is generally rude.
Okay.
Whereas the UK classrooms were much more informal, student-centered. Teachers wanted questions, discussion, debate.
That must have felt really strange at first. A big adjustment in expectations.
Totally. The study said they felt quite passive initially. They were used to absorbing information, taking notes. Jumping into a discussion felt, well, alien, maybe even intimidating.
And the teachers noticed this.
Yeah, teachers picked up on the lack of active participation. Meanwhile, the students often tended to sit together, maybe speaking Chinese among themselves to clarify things or just for comfort.
Understandable. And outside the classroom, what about making friends? The social side.
That was another major challenge the study highlighted. Building close friendships with local British students was really difficult.
Not because they didn't want to.
Not necessarily. It seemed to be more about deeper barriers, lack of shared interests, different lifestyles, maybe different values. It often meant connections stayed pretty superficial.
Like, hi-bye, friends.
Exactly that term, which you can imagine sounds incredibly lonely.
Yeah, you're in a new place, battling the language, a new school system, and then finding it hard to make those deep connections. That must have been really isolating.
It definitely contributed to feelings of loneliness, which is sadly a common thing for many international students. Building real relationships across those cultural and language gaps takes a lot of time and effort.
So, faced with all these hurdles, language, culture, school, social life, how did they actually manage? How did they cope? What kind of support really made a difference?
It's interesting. The study found that the support that felt most helpful often came from outside the school's standard offerings or from very specific types of help within the school.
Like what?
Well, many of them took extra English classes outside of school, often really focused on test prep like IELTS.
Ah, because they needed that for university applications.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense, the end goal.
Right. And also, the value of bilingual support was huge. Having teachers who could use their shared language, Chinese, in this case, to explain really tricky grammar or difficult vocabulary or even complex ideas in their subjects, that was invaluable.
But using both languages, like translanguaging.
Exactly. That approach helped them grasp stuff that just got lost when it was only explained in English.
And it sounds like they felt those teachers understood their specific struggles better.
Yes, the study noted that. Students often felt their Chinese teachers, even if teaching in English, just got where they were coming from, better than maybe a native English-speaking teacher who wasn't aware of their L1 background and how it might affect learning English.
That's fascinating. What about the school's own EEL classes? Did those help?
There seemed to be a bit of a mismatch there, actually. Students often felt the school's EEL program wasn't quite hitting the mark for them. Maybe not tailored enough to their specific academic needs or not focused enough on that crucial IELTS prep. Some even felt the teaching methods, like using games, weren't really engaging for teenagers focused on university entry.
It really underlines that support needs to be flexible, right? Not one size fits all. Sensitive to where the students are coming from.
Absolutely. And the study also hinted that maybe just mixing students from different backgrounds more deliberately within the school could help too, just creating more natural chances for interaction and understanding.
Yeah, adaptation is definitely a two-way street. It involves the newcomers and the community they're joining.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's kind of wrap this up. We've traced this whole arc from the powerful reasons driving the move through those daily, sometimes surprising challenges of language and culture shock,
Navigating completely new ways of learning, the difficulties of connecting socially.
and then finding ways to cope, seeking out support that actually worked for them.
It's so clear that getting comfortable in a new culture and language isn't just about learning words or rules. It's this really complex, ongoing process.
Adapting your whole way of communicating, understanding unspoken cues, shifting your own expectations, finding your place.
And you have to admire the resilience, don't you? Facing language barriers that can feel isolating, cultural bumps that cause confusion, totally different academic pressures, struggling to make friends. Those are huge things.
Definitely. Yet they found ways through it. They kept learning, kept adapting.
And their stories, while specific, really echo experiences many people have, right? Anyone who's ever felt like an outsider, or struggled to make themselves understood, or tried bridging a gap with someone from a different background.
It really fosters empathy, understanding these journeys.
Yeah.
So maybe here's something for you, the listener, to think about. Mull this over. Think about times you felt misunderstood, or maybe struggled to connect because of different communication styles, different backgrounds, maybe even just slightly different ways of using English, like we talked about.
How can hearing about these students' experiences and thinking about how English itself varies so much maybe help you approach communication?
Yeah, approach it with a little more patience, a bit more curiosity, maybe more empathy, whether you're the one stepping into a new space or the one welcoming someone in.
There's always something more to learn about how we bridge those gaps and really connect. It's a journey for everyone involved.